Good evening. Welcome to the Japan Information and Culture Center, JICC, the Embassy of Japan. My name is Yukimi Kurata. I am the Deputy Director of the JICC. Thank you very much for joining us tonight for the special talk given by Japanese-American astronaut Daniel Tani in connection with our current exhibition titled Chasing Kaguya, Moon Mist to Missions. At this time, I would like to introduce our Minister for Public Affairs and the Director of the JICC, Masatsugu Odaira, to the stage for a few words.
Hi, good evening, everyone, and welcome back to JICC. My name is Masa Odaira, the Minister for the Public Affairs, Embassy of Japan, and the Director of the Japan Information Culture Center, JICC. And standing here tonight, as we gather with friends from the fields of space, culture, and arts, it is a great pleasure to celebrating our exhibition, Chasing Kaguya, Moon Mist to Missions. This exhibition invites us to think about space, not only as a destination for technology and engineering, but as a powerful cultural horizon, one that has inspired stories, artworks, and scientific ambition across generations. Today, even Japanese sake brewers are aiming for the moon with Dasai, currently experimenting with fermentation in space. So soon we may be saying kanpai on the moon, and after more than a few rounds of kanpai, even attempting the moonwalk on the moon. I got the right gravity for it. I'd like to acknowledge all of our partners, the Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency, commonly known as JAXA, Toyota, Mitsubishi Heavy Industries, iSpace, and Go Culture. We also have had an expert in Japanese literature, Naoto Yoshikai, Professor Emeritus of Doshisha Women's College of Liberal Arts, kindly provide valuable materials for display. In addition, this event reflects the strength of our team that brought the scientific section, especially our space attaché, Yosuke Kaneko, together. So everyone's dedication has made this exhibition possible, so thank you so much. And this year, Japan is presenting 250 cherry blossom trees to celebrate the 250th anniversary of the United States. Thank you. Enjoyed both Americans and Japanese, the cherry blossom is a symbol of our lasting friendship. Likewise, space, a frontier of shared ambition and nostalgia, reflects the close ties between our nations. Tonight's reception, which will follow the lecture, is a testament to our collective efforts to diverse range of experts from high technology to culture, a traditional Japanese card game. Now, I'd like to welcome this evening's keynote lecturer, Daniel Tani. Mr. Tani, Chief Development Officer at Iris Elo in Falls Church, Virginia, brings unique combination of executive leadership, government service, and human space flight experience. From 1996 to 2012, he served as a NASA astronaut, flying 2 space missions as a space shuttle mission specialist and an International Space Station flight engineer, totaling 132 days in orbit, including 6 spacewalks. Following his time as an astronaut, Dan held senior roles across the government, nonprofit, education, and the private sectors, including leadership positions at the NASA Goddard Space Flight Center, the U.S.-Japan Foundation, the American School in Japan, Orbital Science Corporations, and the Northrop Grumman Space System. a graduate of MIT with bachelor's and master's degrees in mechanical engineering. And Dan is originally from the Chicago area, now lives in Northern Virginia with his wife and 3 children. There could be no better person to speak to us tonight about the past, present, and the future of the humanity and Japan-US tie in space. So let's give Mr. Tani a warm welcoming round of applause.
All right, thank you so much. We need to do a little AV shuffling here. Yes. Okay. Shut on. Okay. Let's see how we're doing here. How's that look? Great. Let's see if that's working. Great. Wow. Thank you so much for coming this evening. I know that many of you were here a couple weeks ago, and I apologize for having to bail out last minute, but I appreciate you coming back if you came back this evening. I was looking forward to it. We had a little hiccup at home. Everything's great. Everything's fine. So I'm happy to be here this evening. Whoops. As you heard, my name is Dan Tani. I'm a former NASA astronaut, and we'll spend some time today talking about sort of my history or how I became an astronaut. We'll talk about a little bit about what it's like to be in space and what it's like to fly in space and a little bit about the future. So I really like to start my talks when I talk about where I came from with this picture. So this is Henry and Rose Tani, and the cute little guy there is not me. He's my oldest brother, Dick, and I love this picture. It's a picture of my parents, very young. It's a young family starting out. When you zoom out a little bit, the story gets a little bit more complicated because this picture is taken here in the Topaz Relocation Center during World War II. My parents and all the 120,000 people of Japanese descent, my parents are born in America, born in California, were honestly rounded up and sent away to the interior because the distrust of anybody with Japanese blood. When I look at this picture, what I see though is dignity, and every time I see it, I'm so proud, I'm so honored, I'm so amazed at my dad's got a tie on, you know, my mom has these pretty shoes, and I just am so honored that my family and all of the Japanese Americans in this time had such dignity during this pretty severely desperate time. And when I think about where this sort of this to me, I'm so proud of both my Japanese American community for surviving such a black mark in our American history, but also so proud of my government because there was an official apology sent by the government for this relocation. And so it fills me with pride both for my community and for my government that both were able to get past such a black mark. I can't not, though, say that I'm also proud that the Japanese American community right now is standing up for other people in America that are being treated as poorly. So when I used to tell this 10 years ago, I was so proud that we had gotten past this, and now I'm a little bit worried that we're backtracking, but we need to keep our eyes, we need to remember our past, keep our eyes going forward. Well, after they lived in camp for 2.5 years, my father got a job in St. Louis and moved the family to St. Louis, and then eventually to Pennsylvania, which is where I was born. Now I am the cute little guy in the picture there, and raised a full family, as you can see. I'm the youngest of 5, and then had a job opportunity and moved to Chicago when I was 3 years old. 6 months after we moved to Chicago, sadly, my father passed away, leaving my mom with 2 in college, 2 in high school, and a preschooler. So my mom did an outstanding job taking care of the family and raising just an awesome family. So this is in the mid-60s. Now, 1969, I was in 3rd grade, okay? I was 8 years old, and I would say at this time, oh, first of all, remember when you used to dress up for school pictures? I think of my kids, hey, put on a suit, and that wouldn't go now. But at this time, I can tell you that I was thinking about the moon, okay? Because everybody was thinking about the moon. Everybody was moon crazy, space crazy. We ate things that we thought the astronauts were eating. Every cardboard box was a rocket ship. Every bucket on your head was a helmet. We were space crazy. And if you asked me, hey, do you want to be an astronaut? I would have said, not at all. I had no plans of being an astronaut. I had no thought of being an astronaut. I didn't really even know what an astronaut was. I certainly like to play space. But this is amazing. I was going through my mom's stuff, and I found this picture. In 1969, I was spending the summer with my cousins out in Los Angeles. Here's me hiding down here. And going through her stuff, and I thought, oh yeah, there's my Jim and Ann, my cousins. So until I looked at the back and looked at the inscription here, and it's Jimmy, Ann, and Danny pretending they're astronauts going to the moon. Now, maybe my mom knew something that I didn't at that point, but just amazing. But what I remember about that time is we were just space crazy. When I got a little older, 10 or 12 years old, my favorite hobby was building and flying model rockets. And these model rockets are made of wood and paper and plastic, and you get to build them yourself, put them together. You get to decorate them the way you want. And then I live next to a big field. You can buy these rocket engines, and you put it in the back and the bottom, and you hook it up to a battery, and you step back, and you press a button. It goes up hundreds of feet in the air. Unbelievable. And I love the power of my thumb to make something go so high and so fast, so high that it disappears. You can't even see it. And then a parachute pops out, and if you're lucky, you chase it down, and you get it back, and you put it together, and you do it all over again. I loved it. It was everything it was every dollar I made on my newspaper route was to buy rockets. And when I look back now, I can trace my interest in what I didn't know was called engineering at that time, because later I became an engineer, and you get to build stuff and break stuff and make it better and wonder how it works. I would sit with these parts, and I'd go, why is this big, and what does this do? And it really excited this interest in me. And then when I would launch them, and they'd go way up, and you can't see them, and there was a moment when I thought, I wonder if it can see me. I wonder what the view would be from up there. I wonder if it could see my school or my friend's house. And this is way before you could buy a little camera that went on it. And but now, when I think back, I can trace my interest in exploration and discovery and travel to these rockets. It allowed me to think about what it's like over there. Okay, what do those people eat, and why do they like that, or what? This interest of the other, the outside. And so I really think model rocketry was my focal point, my starting point for my interest in engineering and exploration. Well, about 30 years after I got to take a picture with this rocket, I got to take a picture with this rocket. So this is a couple hours after my first mission in space for about 12 days on the Space Shuttle Endeavour. And the four of us brought 3 people up to the space station, a new crew, and then we brought the 3 people that were up there down from the space station. I got to do a spacewalk on that mission. It's a fantastic introduction to space. Well, a lot of things happened in those 30 years. First, I went to public high school, and then went to college, first at the University of Chicago, and then to MIT, where I got an engineering degree, mechanical engineering degree. And then I got a series of jobs That's a long story, but I ended up in aerospace, not by accident, but certainly not by design. I honestly still did not have any particular love of space or aerospace, but I got to do cool things. It was a cool engineering job. I got to help design this rocket called the Pegasus. What you can't see is, or what's hard to see, is the thing we're standing under is a big airplane. We got to build this rocket that we strapped to the bottom of an airplane, and we flew the airplane up to 40,000 feet, going 600 miles an hour, and we let go of the rocket, and that rocket already has potential energy and kinetic energy, and it was a really innovative rocket. You can go see the mock-up of this at the Udvar Hazy, right next to Space Shuttle Discovery. But that was really cool. I mean, I was building rockets. It was really awesome. And then in that job, I got to, the same company built a rocket, basically, that sat inside the space shuttle, inside the payload bay of the space shuttle. It's called the payload bay. And because the astronauts were going to deploy it's called an upper stage, another rocket that takes a satellite to orbit. And because of that, I got to work with the astronauts that were going to deploy my thing. And I got to go to meetings at Kennedy Johnson Space Center, and it was, first of all, thrilling, because I got to work with the astronauts. But, you know, day after day, I got to know them. We would talk about, you know, what they used to do and their family and what kind of car they drive, all sorts of ordinary stuff. And it occurred to me, these astronauts are just people, which I never really thought about. It didn't occur to me. And they're people that happen to have a great job. And I would say that's when I started thinking, hey, maybe I can do this. You know, I had the basic requirements to be an astronaut, and I went to a pretty good school, and I had some experience, and I thought, well, I might as well send my application in, because why wouldn't you, right? Who doesn't want to go to space? And so me and probably 10,000 other people sent our applications into NASA, and unbelievably, I got incredibly lucky and got picked to be an astronaut. So this is, we are group 16, the 16th group ever selected by NASA. NASA selects their astronauts in classes or in groups, okay? Class of 96. We're called the Sardines, okay? Because there's 35 of us, 35 NASA astronauts. Oh, I know you're looking, so I'm back there. There are 35 NASA-selected astronauts, and then 9 international astronauts joined our class. So we're a class of 44. And if you think about your workplace, if you hired 44 people on Monday, where are you going to put them all? And so the office space for the astronaut offices that used to have 2 desks in them, or maybe 1 desk, now had 4 desks, 5 desks in them. We were squeezed in tight. And so they called us the Sardines. Our nickname is given to us by the existing astronauts. We don't get to choose them. And you don't get to show if you like it or not like it, because if you like it, they're going to change it to something that you're not going to like. So we're the class of 96. So 18 years prior to our class was this class, Group 8, the class of 78. And what I want to point out is NASA did not know how to take group pictures back in 1978. What a disaster. This is their class picture. What a disaster. So they got smarter, so that's a good thing. But it's so funny. It's almost like they didn't tell them they're going to take the picture, too. But so anyway, here's class. These were the first class of astronauts picked to fly on the brand new upcoming Space Shuttle. Space Shuttle will fly 4 years after this selection. And so what's groundbreaking about this class is this class had 5 women in it. It had astronauts of color. It had non-military astronauts. It was an astronaut class that was designed to look like the American public. And bravo. I mean, they did a great job, and there are very famous names on here. But there's one person I want to point out in particular, and that's Ellison Onizuka here. So Ellison is a Hawaii boy, but Sansei, Japanese American, and went to school in Colorado and was working in California. The very first Japanese American astronaut picked by NASA. And even 18 years later, I was the second picked by NASA. So I'm very proud to follow in Ellison's footsteps. Ellison flew on 1 mission, and his second mission was on the Space Shuttle Challenger, which we lost in 1984, 86. And so we honor Ellison all the time. In fact, in a couple weeks, I'll go out to Los Angeles, where we're going to do the 39th annual Onizuka Space Science Day in his honor, and we remember his contribution to the space program. So that's part of my Japanese Americanness. I'm proud to follow in Ellison's footsteps. Okay, so I and Ellison flew on the space shuttle. Most of you in here remember watching the space shuttle launch. We launched the last one in 2011. What is that, 15 years ago? So many of the school children I talked to had never seen one launch live or in person or real time. The space shuttle itself is this thing that looks like an airplane, and then the crew of 7 sit in the cockpit area up here. This big thing called payload bay is meant to bring up big pieces of stuff like the space station or the Hubble Space Telescope, other satellites, stuff like that. This on the launch pad weighs about 4.5 million pounds. Okay, most of it's fuel, but you need a lot of force to get 4.5 million pounds going. So there are 3 engines on the space shuttle itself, and they get fed hydrogen and oxygen from this big orange tank. Altogether, they provide about 1.5 million pounds of thrust. So 1.5 million pounds of thrust is not going to move 4.5 million pounds of stuff. And so we use these thing called solid rocket boosters. These are huge versions of those rocket motors that I used to fly in my backyard. So each one of those create about 3 million pounds of thrust. And so now you got 7.5 million pounds of thrust. Now you're going to get moving. All right? So let's watch.
Seconds and count. 15, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 2, 1. Booster ignition and liftoff of the Space Shuttle Discovery, returning to the space station, paving the way for future missions beyond. To swivel, aiming the shuttle for its precise target in space for main engine cutoff.
I'm sorry, we couldn't figure out how to turn the volume down. I honestly swear. So I'm sorry. I usually tell you what's going on through that. Those solid rocket boosters have about 2 minutes worth of fuel in it. Okay, so they really get you off the planet. And then the 3 main engines, the liquid engines on the shuttle, burn for an additional 6.5 minutes or so. So that means 2 minutes plus 6.5, 8.5 minutes. 8.5 minutes from going 0 miles an hour in Florida to going 17,500 miles an hour, orbiting the Earth every 90 minutes. It's an incredible, incredible ride. I recommend it for any of you that want to go to space. All right, so where do we go? Why are we in orbit? When we're in a low Earth orbit, what are we doing? What are we doing there? Well, in my career time, we've been building and doing science on this, the International Space Station. The International Space Station, we started building it in 2000. We finished it in 2011. It's an amazing project. If you do project management, it's an unbelievable achievement because the hundreds of pieces here were built all around the world. Okay, some were built in Russia, some were built in Germany, some were built in Japan and Huntsville, Alabama, and they met each other for the very first time in low Earth orbit, and of course they had to work. And so the testing and the preparation that was done is phenomenal. The space shuttle, the space station itself is about the size of a football field. That's what you're looking at here. All of the people live in a corridor of modules that are put together with a few couple stickouts there, and I'm going to show you what that looks like on the inside. The solar panels collect electrical power and store it in batteries up here, and then stuff generates heat. You got to get rid of that heat, so they have these big radiators that let the heat out. So it's an amazing vehicle. I visited it twice. I probably wear 3 mission patches because I was a member of 3 flight crews. The first was that first flight that I showed you standing in front of the shuttle on Endeavour called STS-108. That was a 2-week flight, a great introduction to space. Got to do a spacewalk and visit the space station. When I got back, my boss said, "Hey, do you want to go live on the space station?" If anybody asks you that, there's only one answer, and that's, of course, thank you, let's go. And so I trained for 5 years to go to the space station. Every day of the last year of those 5 years, I spent every day with this crew, the STS-120 crew. They were going to be my ride up to the space station. So I was sort of cargo for them, but the commander, who I'm standing behind there, is Pam Melroy. She is a fantastic leader. She became the number 2 at all of NASA and just left that position about a year ago. And she's a wonderful leader. And she told me, "Hey, Dan, you're a member of this crew. We're going to give you all the responsibilities. We're going to give you all the tasks. You're going to be an integral member of this crew." And it was wonderful to feel like I was, an integral and important member of that crew. This is the seven of us are really close, and we stay in touch. And really, she did such a great job of leading that crew. When I got to the space station, I became a member of what's called Expedition 16, the 16th crew to live on the space station. And there I would be working for Peggy Whitson, the first female commander of the space station. Oh, Pam was the second woman commander of the space shuttle, and Peggy was the first woman commander of the space station. And so it was an honor to work for her. One of the things I would like to point out on this picture is on my expedition crew, I'm a crewmate of Yuri Malenchiko over there, a Russian cosmonaut. And then up here, this is Paolo Nespoli, an Italian astronaut. The picture of my flight home I don't have, but the picture of the crew that brought me home has a French astronaut and a German astronaut. And you think about that: France, Germany, Italy, Russia. And I'm Japanese American. A generation ago, some of these were just sworn enemies, and approached with a lot of suspicion. And we're so happy in the space program to erase all of those boundaries, and we are all colleagues. And the space program, the space station, honestly, was the foundation of diplomacy between Russia and the United States for a long time, and I would argue still is. And it joins like-minded people that want to do exploration together, regardless of almost everything else, nationality and gender and religion and all that stuff. So I'm really proud to be part of that. So here we are in the space station. When you get there, you got to learn an entirely new skill, and that's how do you get around the space station? Because everything's floating. We're falling around the Earth. Actually, the space station's falling around the Earth. So are we. So inside, we are weightless, and we float around. I love the floating around. This is as fun as you think it is. And the supermanning around the space station is just fantastic. And even like there are times when I would be, I'd make a call down to the ground, and I'm just waiting for them to get back. And I thought, I'm going to flip around here. And I would just flip and enjoy the weightlessness. I really love it. And when I see my friends up there now floating around, not only am I jealous, but I know what it feels like. And I know exactly the way they're feeling. And I love it. I miss it. I miss it a lot. This is a tour of the space station from one end to the other. Here's Yuri. We're starting in what's called the Russian segment. This is the garbage can here. You need a rubber lid because you don't want the garbage floating out. These bars here are called handrails, but they're really not used for your hands. You really stick your feet under them, and that helps stabilize you as you're doing your work. We go through hatchways. Okay, when you can close these hatchways, you can isolate a module. If one module is having a problem, a fire or something, you can isolate the modules. Oh, there's no ceiling and there's no floor in the space station because in weightlessness, wherever you put your head can be the ceiling and wherever you put your feet can be the floor. We're going through another hatchway, and then we're going to enter what's called the U.S. segment, the U.S. and its international partners. Here's a storage area. These are T-shirts and printer paper and Band-Aids. There's a spacesuit getting ready for a spacewalk, and here's the oxygen hoses for emergency oxygen. And here's Peggy working out on the bike in the U.S. laboratory module. The laboratory module is where the U.S. does most of its experiments, and then we're going to go into this new module that I had brought up on the shuttle mission, that STS-120 mission, called the Node 2, and you can see it's pretty clean now. If you see pictures of it more recently, it's not as tidy, but we had just brought it up there, and it was my job. My primary job was to fully install the module, not only mechanically, but electrically, and get the data lines and everything. So that was the primary objective of my mission when I was on the space station. So here's that module, that Node 2 module that we were just in. And as I say, adding a module to the space station is sort of like adding an addition to your house, in that it's not just walls and a door and a floor. That doesn't add to your house. You have to put in the heating and the AC and the water and the plumbing and all that stuff. Well, you have to do the same thing on the space station. And a lot of that stuff gets hooked up outside. So Peggy and I had to do a series of spacewalks, this is Peggy, to hook up all sorts of stuff on the outside, electrical and fluid stuff, and to fully integrate it into the space station. Now, doing spacewalks is an amazing experience. You get in the suit. The suit weighs about 300 pounds on Earth, but of course you're weightless up there, so it's inertia, which means that it takes force to get it moving, and it takes force to get it to stop. Okay, so you really have to be careful of that. But once you click your helmet on and your gloves on and check everything out and turn the battery on, you are really your own satellite for the next 6 or 7 or 8 hours. You're out there. We do have a safety tether that we hook up to the space station. And so if the worst case happens and for some reason you let go, although the rule of spacewalking is you never let go, there is a safety tether. But you then have to, you're then given jobs to go out and either fix or build the space station. It's painful. It is not comfortable. The suit, you have to work against the suit. The suit's like a balloon. It has a natural size or a natural form, and anything you do that's not that form, it's force. Okay, to move your hands, to squeeze something, to hold something, and so it's a painful 7 or 8 hour workout. But what an honor to be given the privilege to be asked to go fix or build something on the space station. You're holding onto the space station. Your space station's going 17,500 miles an hour. You're going 17,500 miles an hour. I mean, you look down and there's your feet, and about 250 miles under your feet. Oh, there goes the boot of Italy. Really cool. Here comes Baja California. Really, really something. Now, it's kind of hard to tell, even for me, when I look at my pictures, I go, who's who, okay? And so, because when we're in a spacesuit, we all pretty much look alike. So there's 2 clues that I use to tell me and Peggy apart. One is Peggy has red stripes on her legs, and there's a red stripe on her backpack. I wear white stripes, or sometimes checkerboard white and red stripes. And the other way is I've got the big ear-to-ear smile in my helmet, because as painful as it was and as long of a day as it is, really, really an honor to go outside, and your helmet is filled with space, and you really feel like you're contributing to the space program, and I really enjoyed my spacewalks. Okay, we're about 250 miles above the surface of the Earth, and so that allows us a very unique perspective of the Earth. And so every moment I could, I had my nose at the window and was taking pictures of Earth. And so I took about 16,000 pictures in my 4 months there. We probably only have time for about 8,000 tonight, so we better get going. So this is a bittersweet moment in my mission. This is the Space Shuttle Discovery, who had come and dropped me off. Those guys, I'd worked with those. I'd spent every day with those guys for a year, and they were going home. So this is Space Shuttle Discovery on their way home, me in my new home, the beautiful space station, and our gorgeous Earth just rolling below us as we're flying over it and it's turning below us. This is an interesting picture from my little crew quarter, and this body of water is the Gulf of Mexico, and so this makes this the Galveston Bay. Okay, and what's special about Galveston Bay is this is Houston, Texas. That's where the Johnson Space Center is. In fact, it's down south here, and I got pretty good following the major highways. You can kind of see major highways, and I got pretty good at being able to spot pretty much my neighborhood as we flew by. And we're flying by pretty quickly. You're really only over any particular area for a couple seconds. You really have to focus and look out. But what this reminds me of is there were a couple times when I was on the phone. We use a computer phone system, a VoIP system, where we can make phone calls from the space station. And I'd be on the phone with my wife, and I'd look out and I'd go, hey, we're flying right over Houston. And looking down at Houston, talking to my wife, it made me feel really close to her, even though it didn't make a difference that if I was over Taiwan or any place else. But there was this proximity that made me feel warmer, made me feel like much closer to home. And I bring this up because when we go to Mars, and we're going to go to Mars, but when people eventually go to Mars, we're going to launch, and they're going to look back at Earth like this for about a day, and then we're going to do a burn towards Mars, and then about 2 days later, Earth is going to be this beautiful marble in the sky, and then a couple days after that, it's going to be a blue dot. And by the time you get to Mars, it's going to be hard for them to find Earth. I mean, think about how easy it is for you to go find Mars in the night sky. Well, it's going to be the same way looking up from Mars to find Earth. And I'm worried that distance is not going to provide this sort of comfort of being there, seeing your home. And so there are many issues we're going to have to solve going to Mars, and I think one of them is this isolation or distance sensation that we're going to have to deal with. I'm going to show you a couple pictures of our beautiful Earth, and it's almost less important of what it is than how beautiful our planet is. So these are glaciers in the Patagonia region in South America. And glaciers are where it snows in the winter, but it doesn't melt in the summer because it's so high and so cold. And so year after year after year, you get packed ice. It just keeps getting bigger and bigger. And it moves because it's heavy, and gravity is pulling it down. And as the glacier moves down from higher altitudes to lower, it picks up rock and sediment as it's scraping the side of the mountains. And for those of us privileged to be a couple hundred miles above it, you get these beautiful striations that only we can see from above. And it's beautiful. And then at the face of the glacier here, icebergs calve off, and it's quite beautiful. This is in Central Australia, and I am not a geologist, so I cannot tell you what makes this incredibly beautiful pattern, which I'm going to say it's an erosion pattern of some sort, but I don't know, or the color, this rusty, beautiful color, but it's stunningly beautiful. And there are times when we look out the window and it's like you're at an art gallery, and you get to see something else that's just beautiful, and you wonder why was it made for us? Was it made for me to see this? Because it's so beautiful. I think this is great because again, here's this very distinct pattern, but right next to it is a completely different texture, completely different color, blows me away. Really just amazing. This is in the Caribbean Sea, and this is off the coast of Florida, and what's special about this part of the world is the water is crystal clear, but bright blue, and the sand floor below is blazingly white. And so what that means is you can see depth you can see the difference in depth. So as the water moves between these islands and cuts the channels in the seafloor, it shows up for us as a beautiful, incredible work of art. Now, when I came back from space, people said, "Has anything changed in you?" I think they wanted some sort of metaphysical change, or wanted to know what changed in me. And what changed in me is I came back an incredibly proud citizen of this planet. And we all have our memberships or citizenships or favorite teams or whatever. And at some point, we're asked to rank them. Are you more importantly a citizen of this city or of your school or whatever? And sometimes you have to make a choice. Well, when it comes down to it, for me, my highest membership is citizenship of this beautiful planet. I'm so proud to be from such a beautiful place. Okay, so a lot of those pictures were taken with a telephoto lens. If you just look out the window, I just want to give you a perspective. If you just look out the window, this is pretty much what you see. This is Lake Michigan, so north is up this way. And this is my hometown of Chicago. It's a little blurry here, but this is pretty much the sort of what you can see with the naked eye looking out the window. I was up there in the winter of 2007, 2008, and there was a very big snowstorm for a couple days during that time. Miserable if you're in Chicago. Fantastic if you're in space, because the white blanket provides a high contrast a palette for when. So a day later, when it melts on the rivers and on the roads, stuff jumps out, and now you can see the presence of humans, which most of the time is hard to see from low Earth orbit. Most of the time you see even cities, just kind of gray, or you can see rivers. And so most of the time in the daytime, you see what nature has provided to you, okay? But now with the snow cover, you can finally see highways and roads, and so that was enjoyable for us. Now, I used to show this picture a lot. This is, I don't know if anybody recognizes this, Tokyo. And the way you know Tokyo jumps out at you. First of all, it's incredibly bright, and you're flying over at night, okay? But Tokyo Bay is almost a perfect rectangle from above, and so it's so easy to see. I used to show this picture because Tokyo is a beautiful city. And the other point I like to make is at night, now, as opposed to the day when it's hard to see people or where people are, at night, all you see is people, because city lights is the only thing you can see. You only see where people are. And so Tokyo is beautiful, but then I lived there for a couple years. After this, I went and I lived there for a couple years. And now I see it completely differently, because you can see these strings of lights. They're all the train lines coming out of central Tokyo. And that's the Chuo line. I lived on the Chuo line. And this is Shibuya and Shinjuku and Ikebukuro. Okay, those are the big stations on the west side of Tokyo. And this is my train line. And now I love seeing this picture, because that's Kichijoji. Okay, and then 2 stops later is Musashi Sakai. That's my stop. So I love that I now can look at this picture that I took and recognize it and see where I used to live. So city pictures, I'd take a bunch of pictures, and then in the weekend I'd look at them, and I'm trying to figure out where was that? Where was that? So every city, seemingly every city has a river running through it, so that doesn't help you out. There's an airport there, but the key here is this 5-sided building. So Pentagon. So here's the mall here, and Washington Monument, and so I guess we're right around here someplace. I took this picture before I knew I would be living here. So a beautiful city. Cathedral would be up here. Is it? Where am I looking? No, it might be off here northwest. But I don't know. For those of you who know DC better, is it down this way? Yeah. Okay. Is it here maybe?
Top is south. So
oh, okay. All right. Okay. Okay. All right. Well, sorry. Maybe it's not on there. Yeah. Okay. I lived on the space station for 4 months, and that means I lived for 4 months. I just happened to do it on the space station. And pretty much everything that happens in that 4 months happens to you. It's just, you just happen to be on the station. And so you have to pay your bills, and you have to discipline your kids, and you have to send flowers to your wife on her birthday. You have to do all those things. And also, your fingernails grow and your hair grows, okay? And so if you'd like to, you don't have to, but if you'd like to, you can cut your hair. And NASA has, they buy a hair clipper. I don't know where they buy it, but they just buy it. But then they have to build this thing called a plenum, this black thing, and they hook it up to a hose, and the hose goes to the vacuum cleaner. Because if you think about it, as you cut your hair, if you didn't suck it up right away, all those little pieces of hair would go everywhere, and you'd be the least popular guy on the space station. So first time I cut my hair, I didn't realize that my hair's pretty thick. I clogged up the vacuum tube, and I became the least popular guy on the space station. I was cutting, and I go, wow, that's kind of weird. There's hair. I can see the hair, and I just wasn't paying attention. And I spent my half a free Saturday, the next couple days cleaning up the mess that I'd made in a brand new module that we had just brought up. This is our sleeping quarter. Okay, we call it a crew quarter. Mine was part of the Russian segment. I spent most of my time back in the Russian segment because we didn't have a full complement of crew quarters up in the U.S. segment. But I liked it because we have a window back there, and we sleep in sleeping bags not for warmth, but for restraint, okay? So that you're not floating around the space station in the middle of the night. I have a regret that I didn't do that test. I would have, if I could go again, I would fall asleep and see where I ended up, but I didn't. My crew quarter is, if you're older than 20, the crew quarter is about the size of a phone booth, okay? If you're younger than 20, a phone booth is this thing we used to have to go into to make a phone call. So believe it or not, crazy. But there's a door, and you have privacy, and so you can see, you know, I've got trinkets for my kids and my computer to do email and stuff. And here's a bag of water and my toothbrush. I'm going to show you that in a second. But it's nice. You've got a little bit of space. You've got some privacy. It's a nice little place to hang out. We do about 2 hours of exercise every day in space because being in low Earth orbit, being in weightlessness, is really easy on your body. It's too easy on your body. Your muscles aren't being asked to do anything. Your heart is not being asked to fight gravity, to pull blood from your toes up to your head. So it gets an easy ride too. It's really easy on your body to be in weightlessness. So if you want to go back to Earth and not be a bag of jelly, we do 2 hours of exercise. There's one serious part of that is that our bones are all losing calcium as we sit here. But every time you put force on your bones, your body's smart, and it goes, all right, let's rebuild those bones because he needs them for something. Okay, so there's a feedback mechanism. When you use your bones, your body replaces the calcium it's losing. Well, in weightlessness, there's no feedback, and so we do a lot of things to keep loading on our bones. So there's this stationary bike. We have a treadmill that I hate. I hate it because A, you have to put your shoes on, which I didn't like, and then B, you have to wear a harness, and you have to pull yourself onto the treadmill at your body weight, okay? And so you're not used to that, and it hurts like heck. And then you have to run, and it was not comfortable. I did not enjoy the treadmill. But, you know, they told me to do it, I did it. And then there's another machine that basically simulates weightlifting. You press against, not weight, because we're in weightlessness, but big springs. And it's cool. You can reconfigure it, and you can do every kind of exercise you would normally do here on the Earth. And so that's really important for us. And then I launched in October of 2007, and I stayed there for 4 months. And that means I was there for Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year, Russian Christmas and Russian New Year, Valentine's Day. All three of us had birthdays. My wife had her birthday. So we are a family up there, and we're living up there. And it's really important for us to celebrate our traditions that we're used to. It's not sterile. It's not a sterile environment. We want to live our lives. And so there's a locker that we have, you know, the the paper turkey comes out for Thanksgiving, and the chicks come out for Easter, and all that stuff, right? And we have a Christmas tree and stockings, and Peggy was great. She wrote to our families a year before we launched and said, hey, there's a possibility we'll be up at Christmas. If you'd like to send some Christmas gifts, I'll bring them up. And so she had coordinated that on Christmas morning. She handed out gifts for all of us, and it was really, really sweet. A lot of people are interested in what and how we eat, so there's just a little demonstration here. The red containers are Russian-provided food, and the blue containers are US-provided food. We're allowed to eat whatever and however much we want. I'm just going to make a bit of a soup here, a borscht, if you like borscht. The water dispenser here is a lot easier to get to if you put your feet over on the door than on what looks like the floor here. And so this injects warm or room temperature water. These bags, these Russian bags are really cool. You fill them with water, and then they self-seal. You don't have to seal them. And then when you're ready to drink, you clip off the other end, and there's a straw built in, and you can suck it right out of the straw. Peggy was great. She was a great leader also. She made sure we had dinner every night together as a family so that we could talk about our day and complain and laugh. Yuri, this is Yuri's third mission into space, and he's flown 2 more long-duration missions after this. He's a real master of weightlessness. And drama. He loves the drama. Two things you do after you eat. Okay, first is brush your teeth. So I'm just showing you sort of what we do to brush our teeth. It's not, brushing our teeth isn't much different than here on Earth. But one of the things I'm doing here is I'm filling my mouth up with water to wash the toothbrush because there's no sink in space. Okay, and so to wash your toothbrush, you have to do it in your mouth, and then you have to swallow your toothpaste. Okay. I know, but not a glamorous job. But anyway. And then the other thing you have to do after you eat, so if you ever want to appreciate gravity in your life, think about thank the Lord for gravity in the bathroom. Because gravity is what moves the waste away from your body. And so with no gravitational forces, stuff just wants to hang around. And that's not very pleasant. So on the space station, we use airflow, okay, to help as a motive force, we call it, for moving the waste away. You take the cap off this yellow funnel here, and you turn this valve. It opens a valve, but it also turns on a fan under the panel, and then air gets slowly pulled through the hose. And if you're careful, and you have to be careful, it works great. Pulls the liquid waste away from your body, and then you lift this lid, and that same fan is pulling air through into this can, and there's a hole about this big, and if your aim is very good, and you're very careful, and you follow the procedure, that's what pulls the solid waste away from your body, and it does work great. Of course, this is a high stress point for all new astronauts, but when you get up there, and again, follow the procedure, it does work great. I say that if you ever want to stop all science happening in space at once, break this machine, because 7 astronauts will do nothing except try to get that machine up and running again. But it's a simple machine, and it's easy to fix. Finally, here's just a fun video. This is Leland Melvin. He's a great story. He used to be an NFL football player. He got hurt, so he went back to grad school and became an astronaut. And a friend of mine, he was part of the crew that came and picked me up. And so he's been up there for a couple of days. I've been up there for a couple of months. I'm showing him the tricks of the trade. Here's my favorite snack, which is they brought fresh tortillas, which was great. Tortillas and peanut butter and some chocolate. Leland's squeezing that water bag, and so creating a ball of water. But look, you can see air bubbles floating inside the water bubbles, which you can only do in weightless. It's fantastic. The surface tension is holding that water together, and also can hold other things in the water too. And the symmetry of the surface tension is going to make that a perfect sphere, okay, unless something else happens. All right, So back to the moon. When I was going to talk to you a couple weeks ago, we were days away from launching back to the moon. And I was getting ready to talk tonight, being days away from launching back to the moon. But rockets are difficult and complicated, and they have problems, and so we're still probably a month away from launching to the moon. But this is what we're doing. This is what NASA's doing. We're going back to the moon on the Artemis program. We've built a brand new rocket called the SLS. We've built a brand new spacecraft called the Orion. And the future of NASA is the Artemis program to go to the moon. It's going to be spectacular, okay? The mission that's coming up any day, well, next month any day now, it's called Artemis 2, the second mission. First one with people on it. I'm not going to talk you through this whole thing, but basically we're going to launch and go past the moon and then use the moon's gravity to come back. And we're going to give the brand new spacecraft, brand new rocket, a big scrub to make sure that it's working right before Artemis 3 in a couple years, which will land people on the surface of the moon. And I'm really proud to know most of the crew members here really well. Reed Wiseman, right on the far left here, is the commander. We call him Tonto. He's a great guy. Christina Koch, Jeremy Hansen, a Canadian astronaut, and Glover. What's his? Victor Glover. Victor Glover. Thank you. Great crew. You couldn't ask for a better crew to be on the maiden flight of the Orion, and so we're really looking forward to getting them up and past the moon. They will be the 4 people farthest away from the Earth ever, because they will fly farther away from the moon than any of the Apollo folks did. Thank you so much for your time. I'm happy to take questions. I don't know what our time constraint is, but I'm happy to take questions. Is that good?
Yeah.
All
so
right.
if you have any questions for the astronaut, let's raise our hands.
Okay, go ahead.
Starting over here.
Just briefly, when we were here a couple of weeks ago about making the Saki in space and talking to the moon, they had also mentioned at one point about databases on the moon. And considering the animosity they bring on Earth and neighborhoods, what is your viewpoint of like whether it's used for good or bad? Are adversaries or us accusing other countries, well, that's a military thing and it shouldn't be on the moon? Any issues on that?
So I have personal feelings about space, which is I would like space to be used for peaceful purposes. That's Dan Tani's personal view. This data centers in space is interesting. I had heard this as a business idea, and I still don't quite understand why it makes sense to put these big data centers in orbit. I can understand. Part of the explanation that came to me was you have all of this data that's moving up there anyway. You can do the processing up there and just ship down the answer. But honestly, I've heard them talk about. I don't understand what the value is. I don't think it's military. I don't think it's a defense thing. I think it's like this AI. All these data centers are popping up in Loudoun County. I think it's one of those, but in space because I think I don't know why that's good. So, but thank you for your question. I would love to keep space as the demilitarized zone that it has been for years and years and years, and for the good of everybody.
Take some in the back. What was the most, I guess, inspirational or like memorable hardship that you faced during your 5 years of training?
The most memorable of
like
what?
hardship.
Hardship. I mean, it's so easy to say, but so training for space station, I trained for 5 years. Probably a total of a year and a half of that was away from home because we had to travel a lot. So the hardship really was being away from family, and in a way it gave us practice for going to space because you had to learn, the family had to learn how to deal without dad. But then it was hard because I'd come home and dad's home. So now we have to learn to deal with dad. And then dad leaves. So that was really hard on my family. But it made it easier once I went to space because they knew how to do that. Plus, they knew it was the last one. So, but that's an easy answer. Other than that, training for me was fun. It was learning how stuff worked, and it was all exciting. It was stuff I was going to do in space, spacewalking. But spacewalk practice is hard and it's painful, but I don't mind that. Learning Russian, which I had to do, was difficult. That was the hardest thing I had to do, was learn Russian. But in general, I enjoyed the training. I was an astronaut. I want to do all this stuff, so I really enjoyed it. Just go ahead and shout. Favorite space movie. Again, I think it's a no-brainer. Apollo 13. And I'll tell you why Apollo 13 is my favorite space movie. After I was an astronaut, and then I watched Apollo 13, what I really liked, what I really resonated with is how the astronauts interacted with each other and watching them at home. And so if you see it again and you see them in their home and the daughters being a pain and your crewmates are razzing you, giving you a hard time, that was so true to life. I felt like they knew what it was like to be an astronaut and to tease each other and to poke at each other but have each other's back. So it was the human relationships in that movie that I really thought was the most accurate. And the space scenes were also good. Yeah, go ahead, yes.
On your spacewalks, were you more worried about being sabotaged by HAL or running into space junk?
So the question is, was I more worried about being sabotaged by HAL from 2001 or getting hit by space junk? I was worried about neither of those. Space debris we worry about, but honestly, if you get hit by the big enough piece of space junk, there's nothing you can do. But the same thing with the space station, but no kidding, the thing I worried most about was screwing something up. Astronauts say we are so much more afraid of screwing up than we are blowing up, because if I mess up the bolt and I can't get it in, there's going to be a team of people that'll work for 6 months to try to figure out how to fix that bolt, and then the next spacewalker behind me is going to have to go out and fix my problem. And so when spacewalking is really hard because you're the only person to turn that bolt, make that connector, and so there's I feel a lot of responsibility to do that. But other than that, I didn't worry about the existential stuff I didn't really feel worried about floating away because I'm locked in and I'm always conscientious of thing. And the spacesuit has done weird things to people, getting water and stuff like that. So, but I never worried about that stuff. Two more. I looked. Yes. Okay. Yes. Sorry. Yeah. Yeah. So the question is, how do we deal with interpersonal conflict? Because we're in a tin can with 3 people, or 7 people now, for months and months and months. Huge concern, and NASA attacks it proactively. And so we get a training on conflict resolution. We do stuff like go on camping trips, rugged camping trips that are uncomfortable, or we do cold weather training, we do underwater training that's stressful. And they want to put us in a stressful environment to provide an environment where interpersonal conflict can really take place, and to figure out how to deal with all those things. I was very fortunate, never had an issue, okay, but I learned a lot about conflict at home with my family and at work. And so we are conscientious of that, and you could ruin a mission by having people that aren't getting along, and it could be dangerous. And so you're exactly right. It's first of all, it's selection criteria to be an astronaut. It's selection criteria to put a crew together, and then you get specific training how to deal with that. Okay, way back. Yeah. Yes.
Can you give us your thoughts about the future of the space station? Because I hear it's going to be
Yeah.
I mean, that sounds horrible. Like they spend $100 billion on it. You don't think there's any chance it can be extended?
So the future of the International Space Station, NASA, his plan is to deorbit it at the end of its life, which the last, I am now not in the space industry, so I'm not up to the date, but the plan was at the end of 2030. I think it might be extended a little bit, I don't know, but at the end of 2030. But the hope is that, or the plan is that the commercial industry will put a space station up there at that time or just after that time so that we can continue doing science and other things in low Earth orbit. Yes, it's a shame, but like the end of the space shuttle, the decision had to be made. We have only a finite number of resources. It costs a lot of money to run the space station and a lot of people, and we want to take that money and people and we want to focus it on Artemis. And so it's a tough decision. I personally would love to see the station up there for a long time, but I completely understand the basically business decision to take the resources we've got and go to the next program. So thank you so much. I'm going to be out here so you can talk out here, but thank you so much for your time.